welcome back to the Malix's YouTube channel. Today, if you notice, I don't have my camera on because I'm on a different setup, but we're going to do a really simple thing today as the video title suggests. This past week, there was a CTF that was released for undergrad students around the United States, and I think over the world too. I'm not 100% sure on that, but I decided to participate on that challenge, and one of them was a HackerOne challenge that HackerOne bug bounty platform built. So we're going to look into it, how to solve it, things that I noticed that were interesting, things that were not interesting, and everything along that line. So let's start. We're given a URL called umbc.h1ctf.com. H1ctf.com is pretty much a domain that HackerOne uses for all of their CTFs. So that's if you are looking for other CTFs that HackerOne might release in the future, that might be a way to go for that. But for now, we're just going to focus on this specific website. This is all we were given, by the way. We're given some hints. We'll look into those later on. But for now, let's just take a look at the website. So when we get started, there's nothing much we see. There's a home page. There's a home page here. We don't see much information here. I usually take a view page source route to see if I can find any other informations. Usually in CTFs, people tend to put comments or some kind of like hints in the website to kind of redirect you to certain things. So let's kind of take a look at those. We'll look at view page source. There's nothing much there. Now we're taking a look at around sources, network to see if there's any calls that are made that we do not see right away. If you notice, I'm not using burp yet. I'll probably use it in the future if I see something interesting. Whenever I look at a website, I try to go with Chrome Network tab since it's the most easier and convenient at start, and then move to burp later on. We go to cookies. There's nothing else created there. Now I check local storage because some apps might have local storage stored on it. There's like some kind of information on it. Nothing here either. Nothing on the system storage either. Okay, so there's nothing much here. So what we'll try to do is we'll try to brute force the directories. For this specific CTF, other challenges were not allowing brute force, but this does. So I guess that's a hint. So we'll try to do that. I'm going to jump into my scanner bot real quick. Now that we have it, ignore the updates and security updates. I have to do that today. So I have a alias created brute which uses FFUF, which is a fuzzing tool similar to wfuzz. I really like FFUF since it's more clean, faster, so I tend to use it, and it's pretty simple. So what it does right now is in the back, the brute alias already covers the word list and everything. Just all I need to do is paste in the -u tag and the URL. So we'll start with that and hit enter. Okay, I'm going to stop the test right now. So usually I have seen this happen a lot in other websites too. Some websites tend to return the same status code no matter what you look for. And this is what the CTF does. So this kind of defeats the purpose of brute forcing things if you're looking for like specific status codes. So what we'll try to do is we'll ignore certain size or words or lines. So we're going to focus more on these. If you look at it, my matcher right now checks for 200, 204, and everything except for 404. There's no 404 here, but we do see that there are some endpoints that are returning more size lengths or content lengths than some other ones. So let's ignore 21 since that's the most common one and most likely invalid URLs or endpoints. So how we do that is using -fc and 21, I think fs. fc ignores status code. So now we are actually seeing different things. It's brute forcing it. We saw 4 parameters that are actually different. We have a register endpoint, a login endpoint, a profile, and debug. And debugs and profile look like they're internal since it's giving us a 401 status code. And register and login are open. We see a different size for both of them. And we also see that it has responded with 200. So let's take a look at it. All right, let's go to register first to see if we can register. Obviously not. So they give us a red herring here saying try harder. So let's go to login. All right, let's try default accounts. Nothing here yet. Invalid login. There's nothing much here. And for people who didn't participate on the CTF, there was another thing that was told to us is the login page, however it's there, you do not need to brute force it. We were told that the passwords were pretty long, so you won't be able to get the real user accounts. So I guess we have to look somewhere else. Let's take a look at debug. Okay, debug says missing cookie access token cookie. Let's take a look at profile. Same thing. So both of them are returning same. We can also kind of tell that by the same size. and the words and lines, so they're returning the same content, and it seems like we're missing a cookie. So previously we noticed that we do not have any cookie associated with our account. Let's go back, and there's a session cookie, but it's saying we're missing another one. So it's not checking this session cookie at all. So let's try to create one and just paste in random junk here to see how it responds to that. Probably just gives us access because we have the cookie. No, it's giving us not enough segments. Okay, I have no clue what that means, so let's look it up. So we know that it's the cookie name is access token cookie, so let's see if there's any public information regarding that. All right, so we see a couple of examples. There is AOAuth token, not enough or too many segments. There's JWT error, and it matches the exact one for us. So it seems like this is JWT, or it could be AOAuth. Let's look at what kind of system. Okay, this is running Java. Um, all right, so we have two options. I'm going to start with JWT. So JWT is JSON Web Token. It's a auth system where basically, if we take a look at it, just a quick background, like a rundown of it, there's a header, payload, and a signature. What happens is header and payloads are base64 encoded, so this part right here. And the signature is basically it combines the header, the payload, and your secret, and it encrypts it. So for example, you see this data is an encrypted value of the header, payload, and the secret. So in this case, let's just try sending this as a sample just to see what it is and to see if it's even in the right path, right? If there's JWT and if we are giving it something that does not match the signature that the website is expecting, then we should get an error. So let's go back, update this, load profile, signature verification failed. All right, we're on the right path. So next thing we do is we're already given a secret. So previously, before I looked at the challenge, you had to brute force the secret, but since some people were having problems with it, a hint was given with the secret, which is H1 CTF secret. From my point of view, it's not that hard to brute force it, but at the same time, I understand that when we are in a different challenge, when it's not like an official HackerOne challenge, you probably will brute force it. I would brute force it with like UMBC secret or the secret or something. So H1 CTF secret is a little bit harder to brute force or to guess, so I understand them giving that hint. Given that, let's try pasting this and see if it at least tells us something new. If it still tells us signature verification failed, then there's something else we have to focus on. All right, so now we're on a different part. Missing claim identity. Now, what claim means on JSON Web Token is one of these. So usually all of these are parameter. You're telling it who you are, and the first part header tells you what kind of token it is. So algorithm HS256, that's the one it's encrypting with, and it's a JWT token. Payload is where you claim yourself, where you claim certain values, key value pair. So since we're missing one, let's give it one. And we're already encoding it with H1CTF secret. So let's go back here, reload the page, paste that, load the profile. All right, so we're logged in now. So it seems like that's a way to get in. So we had to create a JWT token that acted as a user. One thing I noticed interesting here is that I could put anything. So I put test, it let me in. It could be that it has some validation error on the back where it's not checking who is logged in. It just gives you access as long as you have a valid JWT that when decoded gives identity that says test. All right, so now we have this. Let's go back. We see a couple of things here. Probably a hint that there's an RCE, there's an IDOR, demo reports. So these looks like HackerOne reports because I've created a sandbox page in the past, and demo reports are something you'll usually see, or a demo hacker. Now that we have these, let's go to the debug endpoint since we noticed that in the past. One thing you want to take note, or I'm going to take note, is the rbtrust.internal. It seems like an internal domain. I don't know how I'm going to get there yet. Probably somewhere I have to get, or rbtrust.bank, one of those. So we'll see. All right, so we go to the debug endpoint. It loads pretty fast. It has a date, a host system, so it's running some kind of command somewhere. And it has a URL to api.rbtrust.internal.debug or /debug. The problem with this that I have now is if we take a look at internal or .internal TLD, which is domain name. Let's look if it's a valid one. I don't think it's a valid one. So top level domain, list of top level domains. So if you take a look at it, I just looked up internal and it's not on IANA's official list of TLDs. So that said, that means this is an internal one. Another thing is I'm trying to link back some of the hints. The first hint given to us was this CTF is virtually impossible to solve. Now that I think of it more, since it has RB trust.internal and we're told it's virtually impossible, it's kind of hinting toward virtual host. Now what a virtual host does is in Apache or Nginx, you can make a web server load certain pages depending on what host name is given. What that means is when you go to umbc.h1ctf, it might load one page, but if you go to API RB trust.internal, then it will load something else. The way we can do this is via burp. So let's use burp for this. I already have it set up, so I'm going to re-intercept the request. So it loads here, go to my repeater, and then start playing around with this. So when I load this, I get that. So how it works is in in virtual host, it usually matches with the host name, not with this one. So the target host in burp is usually where you're targeting to, where it could be an IP address, it could be a domain. So in our case, we're just going to give it a domain. We're just going to keep UMBC. I'm going to remove HTTPS since if we go back to this one, it told us that it's HTTP, not HTTPS. So let's remove that and focus on port 80. Let's change this to rbtrust.internal. Now, if I'm anywhere close to making this work, this loading that we just saw here with HTML of the umbc.h1ctf should change when I hit api.rbtrust.internal. So let's click a send request, and now I'm getting a different response. I'm getting error 404 not found. So we already have an endpoint here. Let's try hitting debug and see if that loads. And we already know what debug should load. It should load something similar to this, either the hostname, date, API, or all of it. All right, so we get a date and we get a hostname. So we are on the right path. This is the API endpoint. Now, another thing that was told to us is that there's a second API document on a similar system. And we have to either guess that or brute force it. For me, I'm going to guess it, but something that I recommend for people to try is the virtual host tool. I might actually use it right now instead of guessing it. Created by Yobert, who is a co-founder at HackerOne. He created a Ruby file that allows you to identify virtual hosts for specific domain types. So we'll need an IP address for it. So let's try cloning this. Let me clear my screen so I can go on the top again. All right, so we have this, we have a word list. What we need right now is an IP address. So let's try doing a dig on umbc.h1ctf.com to try to identify the IP. We do have an IP address for it right here. So that solves most of it. Let's try hitting it, see if our script runs. -IP equals that. And then host equals rbtrust.internal, since we're focusing on that. All right, let's wait for a couple of minutes. Let's see if it solves anything. If this script doesn't work, then I'm going to move back to burp and try guessing it myself. What else you can do is you can actually try intruding this. So if I go to intruder, positions, add. So let's clear everything. So I'm now brute forcing based on host names. In payloads, I can just paste it. Oh, the result's already here. Okay. So it seems like we're getting 200 on a lot of these. Let's try switching by content length. So we see there are 21. Let's see if that changes. I think you can change ignore content length 21. So let's try doing that. Or actually, if I go back, there's something I noticed before. So if we go to repeater and do this, we're given a 404 if it's valid. Oh, well, the thing is different. The bytes is 178. Content length is still 21. So slash is still 21. I'm wondering if I can change this to something specific. So debug will give us a different output. Length changes to 154. So should we try to give it a specific endpoint? I don't know if I can do that. Word list SSL output. Let's try with ignore for now, and then we'll see. So we're ignoring all content length of 21. I'm not sure if that's going to work 100%, but it's something worth trying out. I'm trying to also think like what kind of domain name it could be, since it's a API documentation one. There's devs, there's a couple others. Okay, localhost, return 612. Let's try hitting localhost. Now that still returns 21 for me. Interesting. So it seems like we're not getting a lot of success out of this. Um, let's try to focus on this then. So let's go to intruder. Actually, I want to see why everything's returning the same. Let's try ASD. Okay, so it seems like all of them return the same data. So it might be just returning different for a specific URL endpoint. Let's go to repeater. And then let's see if I can find if there's already a word list here for that. Apparently not. Okay, so let's try getting a word list from his. So it seems like there's not a lot, and the thing is I might not use this because if we take a look at it, there's not anything related to API. So let's try to do some recon on what thing to use for hosting API docs. Well, the first thing looks nice. API host base URL. So this seems like it does allow. Can I go to that? I want to see what this looks like. Okay. Oh, okay. So this does look like something that will allow for hosting API requests. So let's try changing our request here to Swagger. Okay, so that returns something else. If you look at it, it's returning 404 not found for Swagger for debug endpoint. So it might be valid. Now, it seems like most of these are in. What's this endpoint though? Swagger API. Because slash also. Oh, actually, let's try loading slash. It might just give us the thing there. No, okay. Wait, I noticed something. API docs endpoint. Version 1 users. This seems like it's specific to that kind of schema. Okay, let's try downloading. Actually, I remember seeing that on Pet Store. Let's go to Pet Store. Alright, so it's in version 2 slash swagger JSON. Let's try calling that. They don't return that. Version 1 did not return. Let's remove that. Oh, okay, there we go. Alright, so we are getting a Swagger endpoint, possibly for the API because it says internal API Swagger. Let's see if we have our, okay, we see API, but the host name here is different. It's calling it CTF internal. Anyways, HackerOne program, okay, so that's the name. Path is reports. So let's try hitting reports when we're at it, see if it actually works. Oh, permission denied. Oh, that's probably where the API key is, huh? Purposes for an invalid API value. Yep, okay. So if we noticed, we got an API key when we go to debug. Not sure where I'm supposed to pass that. Does it tell me here? So let's get reports, value, summary, process, responses, 401. Okay, 401 means it's not there. or it's there, but I have invalid. So what if I do this API key? Oh, oh, okay. So we're on the right path. So we are getting our valid Swagger endpoint. And here's our debug endpoint. It does not have a 401, but it does have this. So we see that debug takes a URL query for URL 48902. Okay, so if I do debug, loads that, but what does it take? URL of the website to put for test. Eh? Ah, alright, we're getting 502 there again. Okay, let's try. I think probably because it returned 500. We do know that there's a proxy here, so I'm assuming it's a proxy giving us error. Let's try reading a file then. How about that? Oh, okay. So I'm able to read a file on etc password. So for people who don't know what etc password is, it's in a Linux system where it has a list of usernames on the system and other description about the user. So if I go on JSON beautifier, it's not going to help me much because it's returning as a string. But we see there's root, there's demo, so or Damien. These are pretty much default accounts. But here's someone that I know, Gilbert, the co-founder. All right, so he has a valid account on the system. We know where his account is. So we'll have to brute force things. I'm gonna try pulling to see if I can even hit it. Can I load his bash history? Oof, alright, that did not allow. So let's go to my Linux. I want to see which files. So it seems like bash history cannot be read, but profile can be. So let's try calling profile. Alright, there we go. So I am able to read his specific things. Let's try calling etc environment. That does not load. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to enumerate informations regarding the system. I want to see Linux, where is list of installed binaries or things along that line. Actually, let's go to my etc here. Let's see if there's something that we can use for this test. So find anything that has permission of, is it desperate? All right, I'm just gonna do that. So we have a couple of files that can be read in etc, like password. Oh, wait, there's a hint that was given to us. It said about a cloud. So, all right, so cloud system, it said you rely on a lot of risk. I'm gonna try to see if I can load that specific. Let me load the hint for you guys so that we can see it. Not that big. Oh, it seems like it logged me out. That's a bummer. Oof. What? Okay, there we go. All right. Seems like the server's lagging. There we go. So we're given a hint saying that executive is still blowing a lot of arbitrage budget on personal cloud provider experiments. So cloud provider, there's DigitalOcean, there's Linode. I'm trying to think what could be used on the system for exploiting this. Oh, but where is that at actually? So, let's look it up. DigitalOcean CLI creds file. There, I'm trying to see if there's like files for DigitalOcean and others. that I can use because I'm trying to think things like .git, which has Git configurations stuff. Okay, AWS credentials file. So we know we're on Linux. All right, so it seems like it's on, well, that's for Windows, but it's on .aws/credentials. I'm gonna try something. File does not exist. That gives me a bad getaway. But if I give it etc, what will happen? Still bad getaway. So because it's not able to read the file, it's a folder. I'm trying to see if I can even check if this folder exists. All right, I'm just gonna paste that in. Oh, well, there we go. So we have access key ID and the secret access key. So at that point, I think we pretty much solved the CTF, unless if there's anything else we need to do. We have access key ID and a secret key, so I'll use, let's see if I have Docker on this. Yes, I do. Okay. Yeah, my command line is lagging. So what I'm going to do is, instead of pasting the credentials in my system, I'm going to create a Docker that has, that I'm going to install AWS in. All right. Let's update that. Oh. So while that does, actually it was pretty fast. All right, so apt get install AWS CLI, I believe is the package name. So we are running on a latest Ubuntu, I believe, and installing AWS. It's asking me some questions. Geographic area, I'm in America. Do I have to give actual data to this? Okay, I'll just do it. 85. All right. Okay, it looks like I have it. So let's go to AWS configure, access key ID, which we have right here. Secret key, we have it right here. Default, I usually go with 2. All right, let's see if AWS is ready. We're gonna try calling some file. Okay, so it seems like we're able to log in. Now the question is, what are we gonna look for? There's a script we're gonna most likely use for this. Because usually it's hard to guess S3 buckets. Any company can name it anyways. I'm going to try using a bucket. I think it's called S3 Bucketeer. Tom, I forget the name of the guy who wrote it. It's not that one. There's a script that I used to use. It allows you to basically brute force based on a lot of things. There we go. Okay, so it seems like you can target it easily. Multiple targets at the same time. Our result file names will be created. Alright, so let's clone this. And I'm going to have to install Git, I'm assuming. Alright, so right now we have, on this Docker system, we have a AWS account logged in with the access key and secret key that was given to us. Now we just git cloned a really good GitHub repo. I used it a lot in the past. It has been a while I haven't used it. It was last updated in 2019, looks like, with some comment. So let's use it again. Previously, I created a whole Git or S3 bucket search engine out of this tool. Alright, why can't I clone it? Let's try using HTTPS instead. It's probably trying to clone with my, or with Git, it's probably trying to log into it. But since I'm not gonna log in here, we're just gonna use that. Alright, so we are here. And it says target. So target, usually what I usually do is look for company names. So let's put RB Trust since that's our starting company. Oh crap. So it seems like curl is not installed. This is the problem of having your Docker fresh. Alright, so hopefully that fixes our problem. There we go. So it's checking through all of it. It found a couple of S3 buckets. Usually when it says found on these ones, I think these are the ones that are publicly accessible. So, oh no, that's access denied. So we'll try to take a look at it still. It hasn't found anything else yet. I'm going to quickly check its word list to see what it has, because it has prefixes. Oh, it has a lot, so this is going to be quite a wait. So I'm just going to let this run, and then we'll come back when it finds the data for it. Alright, so something weird happened with this. It did run, but if you notice it says found 0 results, and then it goes to this, and it says found that. So I'm not sure, but it noticed 2. So what I'm going to do is actually use it for my own benefit to see if I can get something. So let's start with the first one. If we can't even have a read access. Nope, we don't have a read access to that. So it's just exist, or it could be a false positive. What about internal? Oh, okay, so we got something, and let's try to download it. So ls allows you to list things, cp allows you to copy things. So now we're going to use flag.txt and then download it to our local directory if possible. It seems like it was able to. There's the output, there's common bucket. Okay, let's do flag.txt. And there we go. We have the flag solved for the CTF. So in general, the things we had to do was first exploit the JWT, get into the interface, notice that there was an API, like notice those internal virtual hosts, see if we could load them. Once we loaded them, had to mess around to see if we found the Swagger endpoint. And once we did that, we had the URL. So from there, it was more of a guess and check to see what kind of cloud environment it was running. So, or what kind of cloud the owner / the user Yobert was on, which we quickly found it was AWS, located its credentials file, logged in as Yobert, downloaded the flag. It was a pretty lengthy process. Some of the areas where I think brute force will be necessary is, for example, the JWT. So that's why it makes sense they gave us the flag for or secret for it. There's probably a little bit of brute force still required for the virtual host system, because we noticed all of them were returning 200, except the valid ones who return 400 in some cases, so, or 404 in some of them. So for debug specifically, so that might be somewhere you need to change your scripts a little bit and focus on every virtual host with /debug and see if anything returns 404, because then they'll be likely valid. Other than that, the other brute forcing is with this specific one where you have to do a lot of OSINT and recon to identify things on the system. So probably have a word list of things to look for when you run a brute force on it for Yobert's account. And once you are there, the last brute force, which actually makes sense to do, is to get all of their S3 bucket potential buckets you could access. My script kind of gave up somewhere. I don't know what happened here, because you can see it says scanning done, found 0 results, and then it gives me RB trust internal afterwards. So I'm not exactly sure what happened with that. But other than that, I think that's about it. We solved the CTF. It was 4 or 5 stages long. Medium difficulty, I'll say. Not that hard, not that easy. Brute force kind of made it harder than it should be, I feel like. But other than that, it was pretty straightforward a little bit. Hints definitely helped me a lot. But yeah, that's all for this CTF video. I'm going to make more of these videos for different challenges that I do. Any challenge that I think is interesting where I learned something, I'll probably make a video of that and post it as on my YouTube account. So feel free to look at those too. Thank you very much, guys.